Blessings, beautiful souls. This is Dr. Lori, owner and founder of Still Whole Wellness, and I am trusting that this podcast episode is finding you well and in perfect peace. So I'm really excited, you guys, because I have Miss Brianna here with me today, and she's going to be talking to us about a really very intimate topic, a very controversial topic. But I'm trusting that she's going to give us some great insights. So I'm just going to kind of read your bio here, Ms. Brianna. So Brianna is wholeheartedly working as an advocate for sexual and domestic violence survivors through prevention and awareness efforts. She graduated from Ohio State. We just had a conversation. I was letting her know that my mom actually was born in Ohio, so I thought that was a cool connection. Graduate of Ohio State as an anthropologist. She has been speaking at sexual violence events and participated in marches, vigils, galas, and other events against sexual violence for nearly a decade. So she's seasoned in the game, you guys, is what she's letting us know. She comes to us with as a healed and empowered survivor to show others how to take back their power, change their perspective and their experiences, and see the beauty in the world again. How powerful is that? Brianna will help you to see everything happens for a reason, and that everyone has the power within themselves to rise above trauma. Welcome, Brianna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to talk to you today. As we kind of discovered in our pre-interview meeting, we discovered that we really have a lot of the same perspectives on how to heal from sexual trauma. So I'm excited for the viewers to kind of hear your perspective on things as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here.
Well, as you said previously, I am a survivor myself, so that's why I'm very passionate about helping other survivors. When I was going through my traumas, I felt very alone and unsupported. Like I didn't really have anyone in my circle or around me. What the survivors really comes from is because I don't want them to feel like I did and feel alone and like they don't have support.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been advocating since my traumas first happened in college. I had been speaking at vigils, at galas, and at marches. And I would help when other survivors asked me about how the court system worked and stuff along those lines because I had been through it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to talk to about that. And over the years, I just really got to where I knew that this was my calling and what I was meant to do. And in the past 2 years or so, I'd actually been doing the healing work myself in order to move into a life of adventure, excitement, happiness, where I'm not attached to these traumas and I feel free to be myself and not worry about needing defenses or worry about whether or not I'm safe or whether I'm protected. And I am so excited now that mission and work with other survivors and show them now how to do the healing themselves, how to move on from their trauma, and how to find happiness in their own life and find their own passions and what they feel called to do in this lifetime. And I feel like overall, once survivors are healed, then there's a vision for having a more compassionate, loving population in general in a few generations, yes, as long as these survivors who are healed share love, their ideas of compassion and loving each other and happiness with children and younger impressionable generations. And then over a couple generations, we'll start to see significant changes in how people live their lives and less about the control that we live in now. And this is where my passion truly lies.
I really love that concept and that idea of having the inner knowing that as you do the work yourself and then helping other people to do their work, that the ultimate like end game here is for that more loving and more compassionate generation to come. I love that. When you said that during our pre-interview, I just was like floored because I don't think I'd ever really connected that, even in my own work. Um, I think it's really amazing the advocacy work that you do. I'm always amazed by advocates, first of all. Let me just say that, because I'm kind of working on the opposite end where I'm able to help people specifically with the healing part, but you're actually out there like hitting the pavement, like really advocating for sexual violence and for domestic violence. Tell us a little bit about what that work really means for you or to you.
Well, for me, I feel like personally, I like to refer to it in all honesty. When I talk about it personally, to mention when I talk about it, because for me, there's no emotion attached to the word negatively anyway to me anymore. And it shows the healing that I've done when people can talk about it and not feel like they have to close their lips or be tight-lipped or something like that. And but when I think sexual violence and domestic violence, I feel I'm focused more on the sexual side of it and being forceful and as opposed to more of the physical abuse that some domestic violence survivors deal with. Um, but the one thing that I really like about it is the word survivor itself. When I
Mhm.
was going through the healing very early on, I realized that even though I'd been calling myself a survivor for, like I said, nearly a decade,
Mhm.
I thought of myself as a survivor all that time. But I didn't realize until I was doing the healing and I realized I was still negatively attached to these traumas and that they were still controlling different aspects of my life, not a survivor. And so for me, there's that distinction where I feel like you're still victimized and you're still a victim as long as you're still attached to those traumas in some way, whether that would be through fears or insecurities. And
Mhm.
so what I like to call it, once you're no longer attached to your traumas, I feel like a good word for it is thriver, not only because it rhymes and it makes sense, but also just because, you're not just surviving and going through the motions at this point. You have healed, you can now be happy, you can now be
Mhm.
free. And so you're thriving in life now.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
you're more than just going through the motions. And that's why I made up a new word for it.
I dig that. I dig that all the way. I have the same sentiment as you, and in my program I call it the alchemist effect. It's where you really do grab a hold of the idea that what it is that once really disturbed me, my day, my life, now I've been able to take that and allow it to work for me, and really being able to transmute that energy. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Um, Brianna, if you feel comfortable, I'd like to invite you just to kind of talk to us briefly about your Thriver story.
Well, I am a personal survivor of abuse as a child in my household and then once I got to college, three month period. And pretty much right away, when those in college had happened, I started my advocating and attending the prevention events as well.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it was just something, I think it was really that emotion that I mentioned earlier about not wanting others to feel as unsupported and alone as I did that kind of
Mhm.
pushed me into prevention work and public speaking and stuff like that. Just I think it's just my big heart because I feel like you have to have a big heart in order to have a passion like this and to
Absolutely.
help as much as we have. And so around 2 years ago, I actually started the healing process myself because, I had tried other solutions and they just weren't working for me. So it was, I don't want people to feel bad if it doesn't work for them, or if they've tried things and they feel like it's impossible at this point.
Mhm.
I failed like 3 or 4 different ideas and trying to heal myself long before I found this healing journey. And
Mhm.
I think that that's important for people to know that, it's okay. It's not impossible. It is absolutely possible, because of those of us who have become butterflies among caterpillars, who have done
Mhm.
the transformation work and have learned to fly in life. And so that is what I've spent the past 10 years or so doing, is helping other survivors try to ground themselves and find their own truth and their own calling.
Mhm.
And I actually just have a book being published in the next few days that
Yes.
discusses for survivors and helping them to change their mindset. And as you mentioned, learn to alchemize their traumas and turn them into gold and learn from them, as opposed to being weighed down by them or trapped in darkness, as I like to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So I the reason I definitely wanted to have you on to have this conversation as we talked about before was because your story is it's unique um in that your your perpetrator was right there in the house with you, the initial one anyway. Um and still having to be around this person, with some regularity. It's unique to the community, I think, um, in some ways, but then again, not at all. And I know that there is going to be someone that is watching this, that this is very much their story. And so I like to intentionally touch on the different types of situations as it pertains to sexual violation. Um, so I guess I should say that your story is unique to the channel. I guess that maybe that's more accurate. So I'm curious, like, how do you manage that? You kind of mentioned a moment ago about you kind of tried all these different methods to be able to heal yourself. And if you're comfortable, I'd love for you to speak on some of those methods as well. But how do you now currently work through that? How are you dealing with that?
Well, at first, I think it's important to mention that, as long as you're living with a toxic situation like that, or, with one of your perpetrators, which is very prevalent, like in domestic violence situations or relationships, sexual violence, stuff like that.
Mhm.
I have been living with one of my perpetrators as a child for a little over a year now. And I feel like the main thing that I want people to know is there are days when it gets to you and days when it doesn't. And the best thing to do in any of these times is to just ground yourself and remind yourself that, you are the leader in your own life. And to do this healing journey, you have to take control. You have to make your own decisions and make sure that they are true to you and what you want to do with your life and where your passion lies. And so the biggest thing when you're still living in the toxic, unsafe environment is to make sure that you are grounding yourself. And this is because you want to bring you out of this situation and not just put you into another situation that is similar, or put you in a situation that you're not happy with or feeling unfulfilled or empty because you say left the situation on the first opportunity and you took a job you didn't like, or a job that didn't pay you well, or you moved into a house with roommates and you don't actually get along and then you're stuck there. Situations like that, you don't want to do that. And my
So
whole I'm sorry,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. I want you to pause there for just a moment. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I'm wanting to make sure that as people are listening to this, that they fully understand what it is that you're talking about. So can you kind of break down for us when you say grounding, like what does that mean to you? What is that?
Well, for me, there's different aspects of grounding. So when I say grounding, I mean it's like imagine yourself growing roots into the ground like a tree. And this helps you to feel safe and secure. So it kind of helps with your stressful moods like that.
Mhm.
And it helps support you and give you the support you need in order to know that you're making decisions based on your own truth and your own passion, as opposed to allowing outside situations or external factors to influence you. So for
Mhm.
me, it's grounding yourself in your heart space, in your own truth.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I love that. I love that. Um, and I know that there's different, a wide variety of different techniques that one can use to ground themselves. My favorite is just standing in the grass, or standing in dirt and just, no shoes, no socks, and just allowing myself to feel a part of everything, a part of it all. That helps me. I'm curious to know, what is there any particular grounding technique that you are drawn to more than another?
I do enjoy sitting outdoors when the weather's nice, not so much in the winter,
Mhm. Especially not in Ohio.
but
Ohio
wake up,
winters
that is
are
the
not
first thing I
fun.
do. Yeah. But that's the first thing I do when I wake up is I meditate for anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour. And then occasionally I do yoga after meditation.
Mhm.
And I also always listen to high frequency instrumental music that also is supposed to help with anxiety and peace of mind.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure you probably heard mine playing as we got on today. I'm the same way. I listen to those all the time. And in fact, I'll maybe leave some links to some of those channels here in the description box. Um, so when you talk about um, this advocacy work, where do you see this going for yourself?
Well, for me, my vision, as I kind of touched on earlier, is I want to create first a virtual community of survivors for survivors that focuses on holistic healing. So, an approach to not just healing traumas, but healing your mind, body, spirit, where it includes tarot and oracle readings, getting acupuncture or Chinese herbal medicine, or focusing on herbal teas, or learning herbology or herbalism, whatever it's referred to now.
Mhm.
And taking creative classes like artwork, painting, dance, song. I holistically believe that in order to heal, it's important to have all of these different activities, or try these new activities to kind of help you, one, step out of your
I'm a big
comfort.
believer in
Is
that.
that is what I did to learn my boundaries, is I took steps outside my comfort zone to determine what I liked and what I didn't. And that way, going forward, I had stronger boundaries and I knew my own truth. And so that's why I think a holistic approach is important, because there are a lot of different opportunities out there for people to heal. And sometimes people like painting, but there are others who like singing. And so it's good to have all of those different options. And so I want to start with something virtual where I can contribute or collaborate with others and create this community for survivors as a safe space to come to. And hopefully, when more survivors like us who have done the healing work join the community, then it'll expand and grow. And eventually, in say a few years, maybe the 5 or 10 goal, we'll have a brick and mortar office somewhere, probably where there's a higher population, and
Mhm.
start there, and then eventually maybe grow to where there's international locations, so we can help more people than just in the US.
Absolutely. Now, I want to make sure that I
So
understood
here is
you.
I want to, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I want to make sure that I understood you correctly. You're wanting to create a space of survivors for survivors. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
And I see that, to me, is like amazing, because I think you might be the first that I've actually heard articulated that way, and have that specific intention, where it's almost like I want to say the AA model, where it's like the each one teach one model, where they literally take people who have gone through the program, to help bring others along in the program. I think that is an amazing approach to this healing work, because I agree with you. I think you have to have gone through it yourself to really understand what's needed, and in order to really provide that trauma-informed care. Now, of course, people can clinically learn, trauma-informed care. Of course, that is all over the place. We see that on the internet all the time. But unless you have really been a survivor yourself, or as you say, a thriver yourself, the application of actually, providing that kind of care becomes a little murky and maybe even a little confusing for some that have never dealt with it. So I love that approach. I love that you want to specifically bring in trauma survivors to help other trauma survivors. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And what I really want to touch on about that is exactly like what you said about how a lot of people are drawn to other survivors and on that
Mhm.
sort of empathy level because they know
Yes.
whether it's conscious or it's easy to relate to. Because what's important about that is there are like, I don't want to say 90%, but a lot, a really high percentage of survivors that don't talk about it, that have never talked about it, or
Mhm.
they don't even know that that's what happened to them. And
Mhm.
this whole community that I want to start that is focused on survivors teaching other survivors how to heal will kind of open that up to all the other survivors who haven't been able to talk about it or have been afraid to for whatever reason. So it provided feel was really important to me and something I'm passionate about. And that's why I wanted to start with gathering a group of already healed survivors.
And that, I think, you're bringing up a point that I make often, um, even from a personal standpoint, and that is when I first started this journey, and I refer to it as intentionally healing because I'm one that I believe that we're always healing. But when I intentionally set out to heal specifically from sexual trauma, I came in encounter with my therapist, and I always give kudos and the flowers to Susan Little because she has been an amazing therapist for me. She's been my therapist for close to a decade, if not a decade, and definitely has taught me some amazing tools and given me some awesome pieces of wisdom. However, as amazing as Susan Little is, to my knowledge, she's not a survivor. And she's never disclosed that to me. And that was always like the kind of like the missing link, you know and it was a very, very big piece of why I felt the need to go outside of her to look for what I felt intuitively was missing from that encounter and that experience with her. So I say that from my own perspective, my own situation, that I know that what you're saying is very true. To connect a survivor with another seasoned survivor, I think is really pivotal. Now, you said something a moment ago that I want to ask you about. You said you referred to the more seasoned healed survivor as the already healed survivor. And this is, you have to forgive me because this is a debate that I have with so many advocates for so long. And so I'm curious to hear your perspective. I've heard other advocates say healed in a definitive or like a finalized completion type of a way. Is that the way that you see that? Is that the way that you view that?
Oh, no, absolutely not. No. Uh,
Okay.
so I've said, I don't know how many times in this video already, that I've been doing the healing work for 2 years, definitively
Hmm.
on this healing journey. It's not like I
Hmm.
haven't, started previously, but I still would never consider myself all the way for improvement. Like I mentioned earlier about planting roots and being like a
Hmm.
tree, in a sense, like spiritually or internally, that is what we are, and we can grow our branches infinitely in any
Yes.
direction to any heights. And I don't want
Yes.
survivors to think they're limited, to think that, oh, once they finish, say, this healing journey that I've chronicled in this book, it doesn't have a number of steps, but say they finish that and then they're like, oh my God, I'm completely healed, I'm all done. No. There's room for growth. There's always room for growth, and there's
Yeah.
always room for improvement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've talked quite a bit about, there might be one piece of the trauma that maybe you've been able to move past that piece fairly effortlessly, or, fairly easy. And then maybe a month, 6 months down the line, there might come this other piece that maybe you didn't even know was there. And all of a sudden it's there. And now you're kind of faced with being able to move past that. So I share the same sentiment as you. It is the reason why the tagline for Still Whole Wellness is where healing happens every day. It is the absolute idea, and knowing that if we are putting intention behind it, that is the goal, is to have a new awakening every day, to have a new form of healing that gets to take place with us every single day. So I love knowing that. Before we go, Miss Brianna, we got to talk about this book, child. Tell us about this book. I am so excited. When is it going to be released? Oh, we can't hear you for some reason. Oh, there you go.
It's supposed to be released any day now. It's supposed to be released by the end of the month. My publisher just said October 22, so I don't know when exactly, but I was told it would only take a few days ago. So it will be any day now,
Awesome.
and that will be available pretty much globally.
And so talk to us a little, I know you kind of shared that there's not definitive steps in the book, but talk to us a little bit about the concept behind you writing this book, and what motivated you to want to write this book.
First, I want to touch on what even gave me the idea to write the book in the first place.
Yeah.
Originally, way back in April of, not this year, but the year before, I had been invited to speak in a forum with some colleagues of mine in the sector on child abuse. And after telling my story, and even the other women who spoke in the forum hadn't heard it, and they had all, by the end of the forum, had asked me to write a book about it, and that I really needed to get multiple books out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I really started writing a book pretty much right then, and have chronicled different aspects of my own healing journey all throughout that time on my own blog. So when I came to actually the idea of the book, what I wanted to do was I wanted to write it in an immersive, interactive kind of way, where it's not just the book. It's kind of set up in a workbook or a journal style,
Mm-hmm.
where with every chapter, there's blank pages for you to write on that get you to think and have questions related to the topic for that chapter, and reflection exercises as well. And like, it's not a step-by-step where you want to do this step and then you're going to do this step. It's kind of like how I did it is you start with the first chapter, and once you've kind of established that, which is pretty much just determining your own truth, your own passion, with your own calling and what's true to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it grows from there. So you never just absorb the second chapter into that and going on forward. And it's supposed to be ultimately teaching you how to change your mindset, how to view your traumas and alchemize them, as you mentioned, in order to really be able to see what you've learned from them and allow that to help you heal and
Mm-hmm.
grow. That way you no longer stay attached to those traumas. So mine is mostly focused on mindset changing and
because isn't that a big part of the healing, though, like being able to change your perception of what has happened to you, and trying to figure out, okay, this has happened, and and what now, and how do I grow from this, and how do I allow this to propel me into my life's purpose and my mission, and to be a better human. Yeah. Well, definitely, Brianna. I tell us the name of the book. I want to make sure that.
Sorry, I should have mentioned that. So I came up with the name. I don't know. It just kind of came up to me one day randomly. Was Survivors with Rhythm, and that is because I, at the time, didn't think of the word driver, but rhythm stands for me, releasing and healing yourself through healthy metamorphosis. And I chose metamorphosis because I also have butterflies in the symbolism, and because butterflies start out as a caterpillar and then the cocoon and stuff and going through the healing, then they come out a beautiful butterfly. And I feel like that's what us survivors do as part of this healing journey, is we transform ourselves, because ultimately, not only just because we had to endure these traumas, but also endure the battles of healing from these traumas, we have completely transformed into to the point where we are just not the same person that we were beforehand. And that's why I personally chose that name. And I feel like it kind of helps knowing that in the butterfly symbolism, but also in the fact that, it's got rhythm. It's an enjoyable experience. Like, it may not feel like it right away, and some days it definitely will not, but it's certainly an enjoyable experience to feel the freedom that you get every time you release something negative or overcome something negative. And I really wanted to teach people how to learn to dance to their own rhythm. And that's because everyone is different, everyone is unique, and everybody experiences different traumas. So no two people are going to be alike. So it's
so true.
Be themselves and be empowered and confident in that.
That is so incredibly true. Well, Brianna, I thank you so much for being here. And I'm excited for the work that you are continuing to do in the realm of advocacy. I'm super excited for the people that are going to be impacted, empowered, and have the opportunity for insight and growth from this amazing book. How can people contact you? Well, you know what, before you answer that, I want to know, is there any like final just piece of wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with today?
I just want to remind everyone, who does choose to take this healing journey, that you will have good days and you will have bad days, but it's important not to let the bad days overpower everything else, and to remember that, that this is just part of the journey, and it doesn't mean that you're making progress or that you've failed in any way.
Yes.
And, eventually you'll come to enjoy it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I know that is going to definitely be a blessing to the collective. So where can people contact you? Blogs, interviews, website? Give us all your information.
So my website is called notyourcupoftea.com, with hyphens between all of the words instead of spaces. And then I have an email attached to that. That's Brianna at notyourcupoftea.
Okay.
This page is a YouTube channel that's under Survivors with Rhythm, as well as a Facebook group that's private. So whatever you post, no one else will see, which is very good for that safety that I was talking about. And an Instagram as well with Survivors with Rhythm. So if you just search that in any of the websites, it should come up.
Awesome. And then I'm going to make sure that I place all of Brianna's contact information in the description box below. So if you're wanting to connect with her, if you're wanting to get this amazing book, you'll be able to do that through one of her contact connections, one of the links there. Thank you so much for being here. This has really been inspiring to me to continue with the work that we do, because this can sometimes get a little daunting. It can be a little draining, but whenever I have the beautiful opportunity to connect with another beautiful soul like yourself that's on this same mission to help people, it always kind of gives me an extra little boost of energy and kind of increases my own resilience. So thank you so much, beautiful soul, for being here. Thank you for all the work that you do. And I just speak many, many blessings over you, over your journey, over your book, and over your business. Thank you so much for being here. If you are wanting to connect with myself through life coaching or some of the other services that I offer, Reiki, oracle reading, Akashic Records reading, I encourage you to visit www.stillwholewellness.com. You're going to click there on the single service option, and you'll be able to see the entire menu list of services. Until the next episode, you guys be well and in perfect peace. Thank you so much for being here again, Brianna. I wish you guys well, peace and blessings.
Thank you.